The sweep net is one of the best scouting tools to use in alfalfa, but it only tells you what the population in general is out there. When early in the season, when we're really focusing on alfalfa weevil larvae, it's important to take a little bit different method. And what that method is using any size pail like this. You basically walk a random pattern across the field, reaching down without looking at the stem. You break the stem off at the base and turn it upside down in the pail. And then once you've gotten 25 to 30 stems randomly taken from the field, then you shake those stems, those tips, into the bucket. That shakes the alfalfa weevil larvae loose. And then what we'll do is we'll lay out those stems and we'll get an average height of the stem, and we'll count the number of alfalfa weevil larvae in the bottom of the bucket and get an average per stem, and go to the threshold from there. The trick is to bend over and feel the base of the stem without actually looking at it. You don't want to bias your sample. And then you basically walk randomly across the field and do this until you get roughly 25 to 30 stems. Those stems are placed upside down in that bucket. Then when you have your full stem sample, what we'll do next is, with all these stems now that have been collected, the next job is we lightly beat them against the side of the bucket like this. This shakes the alfalfa weevil larvae loose. Now these stems are held because we're going to measure those. But now what we'll do is we'll look in the bottom of the bucket and make a count of the alfalfa weevil larvae. The total number of larvae is divided by the number of stems to get an average number of larvae per stem. Then taking these stems, I'll usually take them back in the bucket, back to my car, and I'll get an average length on the stem, or average height of the alfalfa, and that's incorporated into the threshold. But basically what we're going to do then is we're going to get a percent tip feeding. We're going to take all of these stems that we've measured now, we turn them back over, and we look at each one for evidence of the tip feeding or the small holes that are caused by the alfalfa weevil larva. At that point then we get a percentage of tip feeding, we get a height of the stem, and we get an average number of larvae per stem, and that goes into the threshold. Okay, Jim, so now we've calculated the average number of larvae per stem, and we've calculated the height. We also have a pretty good idea, based on this grower's history, of when he intends to cut. Now we know that the threshold is usually between 20 and 25% tip feeding and approximately 2 to 3 larvae per stem. But in this case, with high management alfalfa, what does this grower do that's different?
Kevin, in this situation with this particular farmer, we would evaluate what the price of hay is, what the going market price is for, and then evaluate the stem to leaf ratio. We would use probably a 10 to 15% feeding as our threshold and start treating it, because it's quality hay that he's after. I use the 20-25% as a reference. We don't go away from that, but cash crop is versus totally different than somebody in a beef setup. Kevin, this particular grower raises about 200 acres of alfalfa for cash crop, and the leaf stem ratio is very important to him, and we're trying to make sure that we keep this stand for him, and that get the highest quality hay that's possible for this grower. Number of insects that we found out here, from the standpoint, I'm going to take a wait and see approach. We have very little feeding on the leaf tissue right now, but it's something that we're definitely going to have to monitor the next couple days.
Yeah, Jim, it's good-looking alfalfa. I think that normally what we tend to look out for is excessive stemminess in the alfalfa, especially for first cutting, that it get excessively stemmy. But this is good-looking hay. It looks like it, as you mentioned, it's got a good leaf to stem ratio. Looks like it's on its way to a good second cutting.
This individual that I had here, we went in early. We came out here at dormant stage with some Syncord to help alleviate places for the alfalfa weevil to lay into. Got rid of the henbit and chickweed, try to eliminate any places for the insects and powdery mildew and diseases like that to happen. We got a great first cutting off. a 2-ton basically cutting off the first one, and now we're concerned about the insects that we found here today. My approach to the insects are going to be a rescouting in a couple days, make sure we get that leaf to stem ratio that he's looking for in the second cutting, but then also to monitor the control of the grasses, the weeds that'll be coming in not only in this cutting but the following cutting. So we need to look at certain select programs for the grass, and maybe some Velpar later on in the year for some of the water hemp type of situation. Keep this field as clean as possible, and then as we go on, make sure that we monitor for the summer insects, potato leaf hopper, and as we get through this first flush of alpha weevil. We have been able to get up in a good year up to 7 cuttings. This particular farmer raises about over 8 ton per year off of most of his alfalfa acres.